before we start really going into the work, means mainly it's the question that I had at the registration, like what is the most pressing one? And some people mentioned some, and I didn't note them. So like I said, all of these things at the same time is not easy. Just want to get a little bit quick overview. How many of you people do synchronous teaching? How many of you do asynchronous teaching? Who do this a blend of both of them? So who of you is doing synchronous teaching means they have at least once per week a Zoom session with their class. So how much is it? I do this at the moment. Okay, so we have 5, and the other 2 are doing. Oh, we have 6. And
sorry,
I'm teaching at the moment. So all of you are doing this, right? Exactly. So I think asynchronous, yeah, Rebecca?
Sorry, I use the response tools in the participant window rather than physically raising my hand.
Oh, okay. So you use the chat function or something like that?
Yeah. If you open up participants, you can do ticks, raise hand. You can also say you're going for a coffee. You can do thumbs up, thumbs down.
Right, exactly. Like I said, I need to learn so much. I have seen it, and again, for me personally, I'm overwhelmed by all of these things. Not that I don't understand what it is, but just looking at so many things places at the same time. I'm still old-fashioned, so I make hand signs. I did it right now intentionally, not intentionally, subconsciously, because I think it's just easier. But yeah, sorry for doing it not appropriate. But okay, good. So why not? Please be free. So let's do in the same order. You had some questions. Some people had questions already mentioned in their introduction. So maybe you check them off and see what we can provide as a group, what we would do in that situation. So I think Carolina, sorry for it. I have problems.
No, never mind. It doesn't matter.
Carolina, was it? Carolina.
Yeah, but it's okay with both.
So, did you mention anything? I forgot a little bit. If not, I go later over the individual group. So
yeah, I mentioned a few things as Marianne did. How could we do a lot of interactions with the students when you have previously had a lot of workshops with interaction in the classroom?
Yeah.
How could we achieve that when we do the Zoom things? And I also when that is a part of the exams.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was my main question.
Wonderful. Yeah, the whiteboard. So that was from Rebecca. So what do you think about that? It's, by the way, also my own question. I think my interaction is still with my students in comparison to a classroom, it's only a shadow of what you can do in the classroom. Even in a classroom, it's a challenge to get everyone integrated in a complete classroom discussion. But in Zoom, wow, it's it's even worse.
You can use the breakout feature. So we run tutorials as well as lectures via Zoom. So you can randomly allocate people into breakout rooms, and it's really easy to do. And then you, the lecturer, can pop into each of those breakout rooms and see what the students are doing. So you can give them like a small group task and put them in groups of, I don't know, 2, 4, 7, 10, whatever you want. Or if you've got them in Teams already, you just have to pre-program Zoom to say, these people are in these groups, but then you run the risk that if they don't turn up, you could have 4 out of 5 group members present there, right. Someone like on their own. So, but we've used that and that's worked pretty well, but sometimes it needs more than one teacher to be present. So one of the things we've done is gone from say 3 tutorial classes at once to having 1 and then having the 3 tutors pop into each of the breakout room. So because we realized students weren't coming in the numbers, and secondly, it's hard for students when they're in the breakout room to know what on earth they're doing. So yeah, that worked better for us when doing that. So you can get interaction in the small groups, and then you can bring everybody back out. It's actually pretty intuitive.
Okay. Could I just ask a question? Because I tried that yesterday when we just had a coffee break, so I thought I could try the breakout rooms and they could chat a bit with each other since they don't really meet anymore. Yeah, but somehow the breakout rooms, it works with 10 maybe, but a number of breakout rooms was just going around, so they couldn't really get into it. Do you have any suggestion if it's something with the systems, or did I do something wrong?
Zoom has been, I reckon Zoom gets overloaded. So I heard of one at QUT where the one class ended up mixed up with another class.
Oh.
No one really understood why. So, and then they couldn't figure out how to separate them back out. So I think Zoom is trying to keep up with the use. So I think,
okay.
normally, yeah, but maybe don't put them in breakout rooms of more than about 3 or 4 people. Maybe just limit the numbers that you put in each breakout room.
Hello, Maria. So it's Maria Francesca from Rome.
Yes. How are you, first of all?
We're doing well. We are right in the process. So what we do is we taking the most pressing questions. We had a small introduction round and asked everyone how much experience they have, from where they're coming, how much experience they have in online teaching, and what's their current situation. Are they teaching right now? Were they thrown into it, or are they preparing for the next semester? Maybe quickly from your side, to just know your part.
Okay, I can tell you my experience. As you know, we started as first in a quarantine condition, and from one day to the other, we had to start to transform the face-to-face lesson in online lessons. And my university didn't have, already developed some platforms. So we had some platforms such as Moodle and Teams, but nobody were aware how to use it. So we started to try to check the tools, and personally, I choose to make the lesson video registered lesson. So I developed like pills of lesson, of arguments, and then I create a kind of modules. So I don't know, 4 or 3 pills of lesson, conclude a module. After the module, I make a self-assessment test for students, and I adopt the two things. OBS is a tool that I use for the registration, and it is easy, and you can download for free on your PC. And then I upload the link of the registration. I save the registration in Dropbox, and then I send the link to a platform that it is called Edmodo. So Edmodo is a platform in which I have the classroom. Okay. But it is not a face-to-face platform. It's not like Zoom. Then I interact with students with chat and forum. I register my lessons, and then I try to get the feedback through tests, self-assessment tests, and assignments.
Okay, that's very good. By the way, I said already to before, when you have resources like that and you describe that, maybe put a link or a keyword or anything else in the chat for all of us, so I can later play that back. So whatever tools you use that we described right now, I think there's some really good notes or some good ideas. So if you look it up in the browser and just copy and paste the link there, that helps tremendously to conserve whatever you can.
I can send you even some where I can put it, because I do not use. I can share how can I share with you these tools I'm using.
So the chat button is between, there's a green share button. On the right side, you see the chat button. And when you chat to everyone, it should be seen to everyone.
Chat, okay. Where there is the chat, I can put the link, okay.
So don't worry, I'm also, I personally am overwhelmed. And I have a hard time to look at the chat all the time, but I think it's good for, especially with these things. I made a small video for my own class because my biggest fear was that my college students are not used to it. My expectation was right. I think almost 70% didn't know Zoom on a college level, not graduate level, but college level. And I made a small video to explain them. And I said them, you know what, I will ignore the chat function because I'm really overwhelmed with that. But it's not true. It's great exactly for sharing a file, sharing a link, sharing something that people can click on very quickly. Even what you said, the evaluation, I do a Google form so that they can evaluate or do an attendance sheet on that. It's for an undergrad class important to track attendance, just like
I don't know if you had the same problem, but I also am a dean of a master degree program in economics and management. So it is different when you can meet your colleague every day, and then from one day to the other, you cannot meet anybody else. So I create through Teams, that is another platform, a kind of sharing group, putting inside all my colleagues for help one to each other and try to understand each one how solve its own problem.
Yeah.
So trying to create a platform in which as colleagues, we can share our experience, try to find a way to solve problems, but also to increase our knowledge from the knowledge of somebody else.
Yeah, that's exactly why we do this meeting here now, or not?
What?
That's exactly why we do this meeting right now here.
Yes, it's well, but in that case, I do not use this video chat, but just chatting on the platform, so everybody can interact, because it's not easy. Maybe sometimes people are not available anytime to interact as a video, and colleagues I have like 30 colleagues that are interacting in the master degree program, so is it not completely easy to put all together as we are doing in this moment? We are 5. How many we are? Yes.
Okay, we go back to the questions round. So we started Carolina, and we had a conversation about breakout rooms. What I have experienced, I love them. There's really the greatest feature I didn't know before I start online teaching. And it's just, I teach 40 students. 40 students is my experience on the fringe of doing real interaction on Zoom. And I have my heart challenged with that. So I have team projects that are working together. And my experience is, honestly, so it's very hard to have real interaction with 40 students. But if I put them in the pre-assigned group projects, they actually talk with each other. And then the microphones are on. I mean, they're on and they have conversation. When I jump from room to room, that really actually works. So that's good. Carolina, what I experienced, similar like you, I do pre-assignment. I don't know what Rebecca has experienced in that. I told them, you need to sign in first. That's another thing. Usually Zoom is for students. It can mess up people if they start a Zoom session and then they have only 40 minutes time and whatever. So I said everyone can join just by the link, like here now. But you need to sign in with your account that you can pre-assign people in a breakout group. And even if you do everything right, what stands in the Zoom tutorial, and I had multiple email addresses from students, I still cannot pre-assign every student. And again, overwhelming. When you assign 40 people in one class, it can take you easily 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do that manually in the moment. So at the moment, I'm at 50% pre-assigned and 50% I need to do in class. It's such a valuable feature. So what I've learned to solve that is meeting the students first and hope to get 1 or 2 of these people who are not in my list. I don't know why they're not showing up in pre-assigned groups, and do it up front. It would be great to have a teaching assistant for that at the same time. I don't have that, or anyone else who's in the second in that and can control it. So back to Rebecca's idea. The second thing, I think everyone is aware that I haven't used this feature, but I do it in the class all the time. When I want to spark interaction, I put people, talk with your neighbor. And that is great because that Zoom can automatically assign groups. So you can make 10 groups of your class and pre-assign 2 or 3 people together. So they do this chit chat, warming up about a question and coming up with a result. That works in my classroom, and I'm almost certain that will work significantly better in Zoom. I have only 1 hour time, so all of these technical stuff takes a lot of interaction away, or an interaction takes away content. So that's my challenge, to get it all together. So we had that. Rebecca, I think I just go according to what I have here on my screen. Paul is coming in. That's nice. And maybe he has a chance later when he has a question. So we go over Paul. We go over pressing questions right now. And Rebecca is. Do you have anything that you want to ask the team, or anything else that you think that's a challenge, or whatever?
One of the challenges is I've got tutors who work with me of varying abilities. So I've got one that's like super great with digital. In fact, I pay her to sort of be my teaching assistant to teach me stuff, you know, that I don't know. And then I've got one who is like, what's Zoom? Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And so I've got poles apart tutors. Has anyone had, you know, how do you get everyone up on the minimum, you know, and I don't want to just do minimum viable product. So yeah, it's about getting them up to speed. And apart from combining their classes and getting one to learn from the other, has anyone had any experience with how are you skilling up people?
And by tutors, Rebecca means like teaching assistants or whatever language people use for that. Yeah. Because some people don't use the term tutors, and depending on the country.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks,
That's
Rochelle.
an interesting idea, yeah. I didn't know that, but in my university, or maybe in America or at my university, because of union laws, it is not allowed to join another class and supervise it. So I think it would be very helpful in teaching to help each other, especially new teachers, how to teach. It's in offline classes not allowed. I would assume the same applies for online classes. It's a ridiculous rule, and but I think that would be also really great if you can join each other's class and see how they're doing it, just as an observer, as a colleague, to see what can I learn from you. I did that when I was new.
Even if you get permission, you can't join it.
I think you can. Oh, good question. I didn't know. I know it's by union point of view. I think you can do it when you have permission by the person. But people can say no and can say no, we don't want that. We have this problem in multiple ways. One thing, for learning, you can use it, but when it comes to people who are only loosely connected to the college, you want to know how they teach, what they're actually doing, our adjuncts. And we get problems with here and there some adjuncts, but through union laws, we are not allowed to supervise them. Only the teaching evaluation counts. You're getting a little bit sidetracked here, so I don't want to extend it too long. And you know the problem of summarizing the complete teaching based on teaching evaluation. But unfortunately, that's the reality in America.
I think Rebecca's question is really valid though, because there are people that, particularly at the moment, are teaching online that would never choose to teach online.
Yep.
And that you probably would never have recruited for an online class. So, you know, because obviously you would recruit people that are really passionate about online teaching, but they've fallen into online teaching somehow, you know, through all of this, and they're not comfortable with it. The students are struggling themselves, and you know, it's in the middle of the semester. So.
Yeah, no, good. And you made some good recommendation for how to solve it. Marjan, can
maybe just having some type of sessions make everybody ready can help. For example, if you've got 4 or 5 tutors, if you run a Zoom session that all the tutors are present, they kind of, if they don't know what Zoom is and they're not ready for that, kind of helps to be a little bit more prepared. And I myself have decided to help them in terms of content. So as a convener, I'm kind of, usually in face-to-face tutorials, I give them freedom of choosing any type of content, but now I kind of feel like it's important to make sure that everybody's doing, like, teaching in a consistent way, and to maintain consistency, I provide content. Yeah, that might help. Also recording, they're asking them to record probably their first tutorial, online tutorial, Zoom session, to just take a look at it if they allow. That can...
Yeah. Any other pressing question? I don't want to press them out of you because it's your turn. We have also some other in the form, but what else did we had in the introduction round that people mentioned and that, you know what, that's my biggest issue.
Sorry, can I just, if I can just very, very briefly, I will have to run off. Unfortunately, as you know, we're on a very strict lockdown and I haven't been doing any grocery shopping for almost 2 weeks. I will have to go to the grocery store. First, I need to fill in the government form to allow me to go to the store, and I want to time it to get to the store when there are sort of fewer people there. So.
Okay. So no pressing question, but pressing need for goods.
Yes,
okay, good. Thank you, Jonas, for being here. Maria, anything from your side, or both Marias? We have now 2 Marias here in. Oh no, one is already out. No, it's not. Sorry.
One is Maria Francesca. Yeah.
Oh.
Werner, I'm wondering if something that we might be able to do as a community is, you know, it's hard to find decent tools, but also decent content to share. So one of the things I guess I'd like to throw to you at SERVSIG is it would be very great if, as people are developing content for YouTube and even little how-to videos, that we could somehow share them so that if somebody, like for instance, I'm doing how to do a service safari. So I'm actually going to video myself doing one and then post it for my students so that I can get some sort of interaction. So if we're developing little snippets of information, and I don't know how we collate it in an easy way, but I'm looking for really quality content that I can actually use in my class or send my students to go watch. So I don't know if SERVSIG could house links, you know.
Yeah, I like the idea a lot. So you're talking about pedagogy means approaches that we as teacher can learn from, or is it more like, oh, that is a good content piece and I can use that in my own activity?
Either. It could be either. So we're developing quizzes for students, but also I'm making a whole bunch of how-to videos because I can't show them in the lecture and it's boring on Zoom. So what I'm having to do is to do stuff at home, make a video of it, and then go watch it later.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So I think that's very helpful because there's a lot of recommendation also around. You don't need to reinvent the wheel completely, especially if you teach online. And in my case, and for a lot of people's cases, is like you were thrown into that in a week. So usually, I don't know, you can prepare a semester for that or maybe a month. And especially when it comes to much online material that needs to be adjusted. And now I need to take what I have. I produce my stuff, but I really produce it on the flow, in the flow. And I'm not always ready to have it a week earlier to show you my video, what I did for that, to record my lecture, what I thought is a core piece. I'm seeing how that is. So that would be very valuable. I make a note. I had always the idea of doing something like a slide competition or what is the best YouTube video you show in your class. Now it looks to be more relevant than ever to have these kind of small bits and things.
Oh, and even tips about virtual backgrounds and where to go find them. So I went hunting for virtual backgrounds and
we'll see that.
Yeah. As it turns out, my husband has a green screen because he makes videos for work. So he's set up a blue screen behind me because I couldn't get the virtual background on Zoom to work properly without having it. And once I had it, then I could start doing it. So it was just really difficult to figure all of that out. But we could maybe have a virtual background competition.
I was trying mine and I couldn't get it to work because I don't have a green screen.
Yeah, I have a small recommendation. It's just related to that. And I find that virtual background is one thing, and I like the idea. One thing is really, I don't know, the kids, to engage them by nice backgrounds and they love it. I'm not sure how much that helps, but it's fine. It changed the mentality. I can really see how you can use your virtual background to change it in some. Oh, by the way, how do you change it? Do you change it on the fly in the settings, Rebecca?
Yeah. You
okay, just want to understand. Good.
I'll put it in the chat.
It's an interesting approach to use the space behind you. And what I'm doing is, although it's a little bit technical, overwhelming for me sometimes, what I said already before, I like the gallery view because I can see all your faces. And if you teach a class online, up to 20 people, you see every face, so it has at least something close to a classroom. And I hate to leave that kind of environment for going on my PowerPoint slide and being alone in this big slide. And especially in my own class teaching, I look people in the eye. I'm going in my class teaching away from the slide. So it's very weird to now going back to the slide and putting them a slide for 5 minutes with bullet points on it or a graph. And that's usually how I not present. So what I do is I use a program that has, the name is called, is Manycam. Manycam is a virtual webcam. And a virtual webcam is something that you can use as a normal webcam. And then you can blend in things like this here. So I have my slides right there. I can talk to you. You can still see the overview of both of them. If you have me big, you can read that. I need to adjust my slides for that size. So that's my other problem. So that's still there, but you can blend things in. It is for these cases very helpful where you want to have engagement, where you want to see the feedback, when you want to see that you really get the point across, and you still want to be in this kind of gallery view. And I see myself that this is something that I want to do. So Manycam, and it's a picture-in-picture mode, what I'm using here. So, so that's maybe, I could put you a link in it, or at least I write it here. So I think that I could see what you're doing, Rebecca, with your funny backgrounds. You can use them in a similar way. They say, that is something I want to talk about. And if you position yourself like I do it right now, and on the left side of the screen, there's space on the other side. Whatever left and right is, maybe I mix it up right now. Good. So that is just a small tip from my side.
Sorry, Werner, how did you just do that?
Manycam, I wrote it there. I think it's Manycam, Google it.
Yep.
And the complete trick is a virtual webcam. This is usually used for streamers. So I use a lot of software from streamers. I don't want to make it too techy here. But streamers means gamers or something else. They want to have the lower third here. They want to put some other things in the screen. For that, they take the video feed and put other stuff on it. You can use it for teaching like this here. So that's a relatively neat thing if you want to keep the conversation in the bigger group going. without leaving the main screen. And I find it quite helpful for these. If I do a web browsing, I could do it, but it's pretty likely too small. So I don't say that the screen sharing feature of Zoom is not good. It's even better than the one in Skype, but it has its challenge because I lose the audience in that moment. Good.
But do you use to register your lesson, or do you lose all this work? I mean, you work with the face-to-face, I mean, virtual face-to-face lessons, but then you are registering your lesson, you keep your work, or you lose your work after your lesson?
So what I'm doing right now in this session here is recording the entire Zoom session. I think that's something that you can do, and it's my nice reference. So in this way, it's recorded. The video feed will be recorded in Zoom. So when you have your own lecture, and I would put it this side, I would put the slide here, it would be recorded in Zoom. The virtual camera is not recording anything, but it's called a virtual camera. So it means you have another webcam, an additional one that you usually don't see, and you can do with this webcam whatever you want to do. So you're right, you could even use it for pre-producing content if you want to do this. So whatever you want to blend in, you can have it like in a TV studio. And also it looks a little bit over the top. It's not necessarily, when you see how we learn today, when we look how people learn, they go to YouTube to learn stuff, if they want to learn stuff. And you see people apply a lot of this pedagogy in YouTube when they're depending on advertising money, and people get quite creative. And honestly, when it comes to good teaching, I would love to be on that level, because I hate it that we are teaching concept, we teach them first, and then you get a good YouTube video about it. So I would rather have quality of YouTube on 10-15 minutes and use the Zoom session for interaction around that. So yes, the virtual camera you could also use for preparing your stuff if you want to do this. Sorry, I don't want to talk too long, but just a second, if we had that already in the other session, you can use PowerPoint and narrate this PowerPoint for people that didn't know that. So we have a wonderful video from Faisan at the SERVSIG website where he tells about some tech, and I think that's one of the most dominant one, that you can have your slides ready, and then you just do the presentation in front of the slides, you record that, it's almost like a video. You can even export it as a video. That's a very cheap, easy, minimum basic stuff, how we can make a lecture video up front. I would not show that in a Zoom session at the time, but it's nice for pre-recorded lectures or preparing people for that. So I talked too long. There were questions, and there are other pressing questions that we want to go to. Maria.
Yes, I want to share my experience, as my starting point are our customer, our students. As I start my teaching online on the second week of March, I have a lot of experience, and students prefer to have streaming, but also uploaded records of streaming. So we use, I use Google Meet to give lesson, but also to record my streaming. So after the streaming, I put the recording, I put the record on Google Drive, and I share the link on our platform Moodle. As our student asks for video record, they prefer streaming. From my survey to 150 students, emerges that students prefer streaming, but they would like to have the records of streaming. Because of in the south of Italy is completely locked down, you know, and in south sometimes we are having some problem with connection. So for students, especially in the very south, it's not so easy to keep connection to all the time. So our orientation to student is to go on in streaming or recording, and then upload the record of streaming. Of course, in the record there is also our conversation and chat are recorded, but we ask for consent, for permission of student, and so we go on. It's just to share, and however the students are enough satisfied of their satisfaction is high about this type of teaching. So just to share.
I agree with Maria. I start to make a kind of survey with students, and that will be a much wider survey, asking them if they prefer to have an interactive lesson through meeting, like with Zoom or any other kind of platform, if they prefer to have a recording lesson. And everybody are telling us that they prefer the recording one, because in this way they can go up and down with the lesson, and they can integrate the knowledge with some lecture, and they even love to receive this assignment and test for understanding and self-assess themselves about activities and learning. And in this moment, they have much more difficulties with direct lessons, because I also asked to my colleagues, and 50 of our courses are recorded, and 50 of our courses are indirect activities. But
Also
students
for us,
prefer, and students prefers the recording one. Even if for us it's much difficult, because I also prefer to have students in front of me, watching them in the eyes and trying to understand how they can grade the contents. At the same time, they really prefer to have time and to come back to content, visualizing lesson in different moments.
Yeah. So other questions that we had in the meeting before, or that people said as a pressing question that were in the deduction round mentioned. Paul is coming in from Bologna, is it right? Or where are you? Oh, Paul, you don't have the microphone on. And Christina Heino.
Yeah. I came back to India on 14th of March.
Oh, okay, good. That's good.
Yeah, actually, government of India, they evacuated us. They sent a plane to evacuate Indian students. So fortunately, I was not part of the same flight, but I could come just in the same morning I came via Germany, and still I'm self-quarantined and living isolated. So it's been my 16th day.
Oh,
and they
you're
asked
not
me
reunited with your family. You're not already reunited with your family?
No, I'm not meeting anyone. We are living in the same house, but we are not meeting to each other. So I would like to share my experience regarding because I am also teaching in this term, and I'm also taking some courses. So we teach through Microsoft Team. And I took some classes after coming back to India. So for me, it was a challenging sometime that students were complaining that sometime I was even I tried to not to be in too much hurry in speaking, but they were asking me to speak slowly and move not very fast. And also I took some presentation because it was part of the course curriculum. So I had problem in managing presentation from students. So those students who were trying to use different way of presentation because I don't know, in our system, students were not having control in managing their own, changing their slides by their own way. So I used to manage for them, and sometimes it used to work, but sometimes it was not working. So, and within a very short span of time, I also will have my pre-proposal in Bologna. It will be online, but I would appreciate if I will get advice on trying to how to make it more engaging. I know it is very general advice, but I would appreciate any suggestion to make my presentation more interesting, apart from regular what we do in presentation.
Yeah. We had this question before, and I think the answer was very often that people said, do breakout groups or something else. The problem, what I see here is, if I want to, it doesn't solve the problem of engaging people with 40 or 100 people, is maybe too much in a Zoom session. So coming back to that question, I think it's anyhow dominant. Any other ideas how, when you have a bigger group in it, something like 20, 30, how to get them really interacting with you? Maria.
Well, I have a class with 150 students.
Yeah.
And I keep involved with the recording and assessment, and project work. I think that if I try to put all together in a classroom with in a kind of conference, 150 for sure, I lose 50% of students because of a connection, because of everything. So the point is how to deliver contents and how to let them feel that they are not alone. Then I give my disponibility in any moment for interact individually or a little group with them by phone, by WhatsApp, by Skype, by any kind of easy way is possible to not feel them alone. And so they feel the presence with the platform Edmodo that I sent to you, because I chat with them and I interact, sending message, asking questions, and so on. I record with OBS, that is the other one that I use, because it not requires line, because I can do it by my PC and just put in Dropbox. And the other things I do not want to do is to put on YouTube, because this, I think, is our value. And it is something that we cannot deliver in the internet as for free, because it's something that means work for us, I think. I mean, even if you can close group on YouTube, in any case, it's something very critical. And
I think that's very helpful. And I think when you have 150 people in a class, I think synchronous teaching is almost impossible. It would be nice to have interaction, but we even struggle with that in the big lecture halls. Maybe quick point to the YouTube thing, just my take on that. What I do, I agree with you. I don't want to have it right away as a playlist for everybody, but I do them unlisted. The reason why I'm still using YouTube is just the best environment to upload, and they have the technology under control. So from a technological point of view, it helps me a lot. I trust them when it's unlisted, that people cannot get it so easily. If you know the link, then yes, you can get it. But that's not how YouTube usually works. It works through recommendation and other things. That's I think, neglectable kind of threat. But like I said, YouTube unlisted, or like I said, you can also do it on a Google Drive, and then it will be like a YouTube video. So then you have a link there that is definitely not in YouTube. Any other ideas how to interact? How to spark interaction in these online environments? Because interaction means back and forth. That was what you, Paul, was asking, was also my question.
I mean, one of the basic...
Sorry, go, Rochelle.
Rachel.
I was going to say one of the basic ways that I've found is getting students to, do the things like sharing TED Talks and YouTube and so on, but also even answering discussion board questions. So it sounds a little bit plain, because often, you've got a lot of interaction in class, but then for the students that don't feel that they participated in class, they can then participate on the boards through writing and so on. And sometimes you can put those up in the chat as well, those discussion questions, so that some students will think, I don't want to speak up, but I'll talk in the chat.
What I found very helpful, what is even better online in comparison to offline, is now that I have everything online, I need to do more Google Forms. So for instance, my attendance sheet is Google Forms. And that leads other opportunities. So now at the moment, I do an evaluation after every class. And it works. I'm sure that the participation will go down for this evaluation, but you can ask very quickly between the classes questions, and people fill them out easier. They're now in this kind of mood. So Google Forms is not a big secret, but it's very helpful. It's just at the fingertips. So much easier than do it with paper and pencil in the classroom or activating that. If you don't mind, I go over the list of stuff that people responded as the most pressing question. I need to read them. I haven't read that before. So let me read very quickly over it, and I throw some of these questions. I don't have an assistant here. So how to help my team? I don't know how that question is meant. Was one of the last people registered.
Well, that
it
was
sounds
me.
intriguing. I don't know what it means.
No, it was just me. It was, as I said, I'm not teaching myself, so that was the reason I joined. So yeah,
How to
ideas.
organize that? I think Rebecca and you had already a chit-chat conversation about that. Unfortunately, I don't have a team. Let's see what the next thing is. What are best and most suitable activities to show for online tutorials and workshops? Rebecca said already we should do some kind of competition. I love the idea, or not competition, a collection. And I'm wondering how I can spark that. I'm happy to organize that. My experience is in online environment and social media, people are significantly less participating than you think. So let's think about how this all started. It started by a call for resources. And after I get no response, I asked a lot of friends behind the scenes, and I got some responses. So it worked. It looks good. I always want to look good, but it was also a little bit fake. So I pressed people to do this. So I would love to do a competition or an incentive that people really submit what Rebecca had as an idea. If you have ideas how we can make it that there are momentum start, that people love to share the best YouTube video from other people or from themselves produced or whatever it is showing teaching. I love the idea what you had, Rebecca, just in the execution. Yes, Maria?
No, I have to go. I'm sorry, because I have a Skype call. But if you organize again something like this, I would like really to share. And even if you want to understand which are the main difficulties and even opportunities from this experience that we must to achieve. And I mean, consider me as a part of this group, because I really would like to interact with you all in this situation. Bye. Thank you very much,
Maria. Yes, and we had scheduled for an hour. If you have a little bit longer, we can go over some of the questions. If this doesn't, sorry, I was locked here. If not, I understand that totally, or we understand. So there was suitable activities. We had that a lot. Let me very briefly read over the new questions. We had already a session last Thursday. Power presentation with audio. I mentioned that already as a kind of secret weapon. I think a lot is possible. It's not very interactive. So it was already mentioned. I don't know if there's a question around this. There's just a button there and you can record that nicely. It's really very convenient. It's even cool to share a PowerPoint slide instead of a video, because you can flip through it and you get all the audio to the right time. So it might be more convenient than sending a video, and even from the sides. Webinar in online teaching. This is what we're talking all the time. Someone asked assessment. What is the question around assessment? Did anyone? Maybe not of you guys. Okay, you have a longer one. How to create good interactive sessions with students when we have over 100 students. That's a good one. Over 100 students in one course. We have planned for different assignments and semesters. As all others, we have short of time to make these changes. So how to spark interactivity when you have a bigger classroom, like 100 people or so?
I asked that question and I have mainly, I got some answers and good examples, but we have also planned for different like breakout sessions, but we have tried to organize them, as you said, beforehand. But we have just done this in theory, so we will see what works out later on this semester. But if anyone has suggestions or ideas, I'm happy to take it. And also happy to share how it went later on.
What I can maybe play back from the first group is if you have a big group, while people maybe don't to participate. On the other hand, the bigger the group is, the easier it is to make polls. So whatever are questions before, poll everywhere is a good platform for doing this. There's another one that is freer. I can look up how much that cost or what the other one was, what I found personally. So that's very good. So a lot of public speakers are using that for the auditorium right in time. So it means you give them the link and they do the poll and you get that right away. There's even a polling function that you can pre-assign in Zoom. So that's good. The other thing is we had last time in the session conversation about cold calling. Yes, it doesn't work very well in Zoom, but what I like in cold calling, it reminds me on warm calling. So if you prep 2-3 more students to participate and give them the question up front, or let them know that you will ask them, that can spark something. So there are at least 2 things from the last time. Marjan had another answer. Or
yeah, I was kind of thinking about assigning some sort of responsibility to them. So at the end of this discussion, they will take some notes. For example, take a note of the most 3 important topics that was discussed during the session. So everybody will send it or email it to you. And I don't think you have to read it, but it's some sort of a task that they are involved and they don't get bored. They have a responsibility. That kind of helps them to stay involved.
Thank you. I've tried that in another course when we had it on campus, when I had a student that was able to hear so good. So we always take takeaways. So they need to have some takeaways, and we have some learning platforms that we use to communicate with all the students. So I have created some discussion forums where they need to, after all the sessions, go for write down some takeaways, and that is also what I try to motivate them. One part of the learning process for them, so they could use that if they write good stuff. But thank you. Good to hear that you do it as well.
We had the question before, and I don't know if the person already left, but how to do exams online?
Yeah.
How to ensure that this really works? I think that's an interesting one. I usually skip every exam and do a lot of interactive work, exactly out of this reason, but you can't do it with every subject. So how do you do it with exam? Any ideas or suggestions?
I think it's really challenging. I mean, you can obviously do open book and so on, and that's probably what I would recommend is the easiest way. For our accounting units where they have to prove that it's them in order to get accreditation, we do proctoring where we have the webcams for invigilation. That's what we're going to be doing now. Normally we would do it face-to-face, but that's what we'll be doing for online, and I think that'll be challenging. But I would suggest try and do as much online open book stuff as you can if it's something that you can do. Yeah.
So just to understand, you have really webcams open, so when they write an exam or do something in that period of time, there need to be a webcam on, and though that they actually doing the work, not someone else. Okay.
Yeah, so they'll be invigilated, so it'll be recorded session with the webcam on. But as I say, that's for the accountants where there's accreditation requirements. For services or management or marketing, I probably wouldn't go down that path unless for some reason you were really determined.
Marjan.
Yeah, I have online quizzes. So there are these modules, let's say after 2 or 3 sessions of lecture or tutorial, there are these online quizzes that they do, for example, in week 3, 7, or 10. But then these quizzes are extremely scenario based. So even they have a book open in front of them, if they don't know the theory, they won't be able to answer. They help a lot. So even like in previous sessions for my face-to-face, they still do online quizzes, and if they're scenario based, they can be very engaging and at the same time a very good way to analyze their performance.
Maybe a small contribution from my side. It's not good enough for online examen, but let's say my attendance sheet, or when there's something like a small feedback, like a small homework, on Google Forms, you can switch on that it only comes from one computer. So you can only respond at once. That helps you that not someone is doing all of the work somewhere else or something like this. It goes over the IP. So if you know what a VPN is, you can of course trick it. But I think for these not so sensitive things like an attendance or a small quick test that you count over a time, I think that's good enough for that. It's not good enough for an examen. So it looks like people are signing out, and I totally understand. We scheduled for an hour or so. I think we have the most stuff here together. I will play back what on other resources came here, and also what stands in the chat. I leave it also a little bit open. If you have other recommendations, we had a question about what other resources you are using, what kind of tools you are using. Put them right now also in the chat. So they are here in this documentation. That would help. If it is okay for you, then thank you very much for this contribution. and we'll see how we can work that out. And I hope I can make also at the next step then this kind of collection of videos what other people have. I think that's a great idea by Rebecca. Hopefully we can get that starting. I think that means for a group like this year, submit something. If I would have 10 people who submit something, then the momentum will start rolling. If no one does it, I don't get anything started. I teach social media, and I tell my students, polls is a nice idea, but make sure it's successful. It looks bad on you if you start a big initiative and no one answers. You make a call, no one answers. And so let's see if we can get that rolling. Thank you very much for attending, and I'll leave it a little bit a moment open. If you want to add anything else to the chat. Is it okay?
Thank you, Werner. Thank you. This was great. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.